Okay, team. So, welcome to your Pilates. I'm just going to alter my screen down a little bit. So we've got various areas we're going to work on, but first of all, I want you to think about some mobility. I've now just really nicely cut my own head off. So I'm just going to move that up there so you can see a little bit more. Then when I do some of the floor work, I'll move the camera down. Okay, just bringing yourself so your feet are hip distance apart. If you've got any squeaky floorboards like I have, try and avoid them. And then just bringing yourself into kind of a neutral stance. I just want you to start by rolling yourself forward and back, and you can go up onto your toes as much as you want. So use this as a bit of an excuse to actually just massage through your feet. I suspect most of you at the moment have got probably more relaxed footwear than you might normally wear. But actually, if we're always spending our days in things like sandals or flat shoes at the moment, we actually sometimes need to make sure that our toes are just getting a little bit of a workout. So again, you can almost sometimes just pick up the floor. Imagine you're just trying to pick up and scrunch and then release through your toes. It's going to allow you to open up and expand. I always say this is about creating as much space between your toes as you can. And then from there, just bringing it a little bit further up the body, we're just going to take it down into some mini squats. So I'm hardly squatting at all. I'm keeping the weight in my heels and I'm just pushing my butt back. You create almost like a zigzag in your body. So as the butt goes back, you're going to find that your chest will ever so slightly just come forward. And I'm so light. I'm just working through ranges of movement really to start to get through those ankles, those knees and those hips. Weirdly enough, in Pilates, part of the move is actually doing a really slow squat. You wouldn't think it, but it's quite a lot of crossover from what we might see. And then just bringing yourself a little bit further up the body. And we're going to start with our hip circles. So I start really small. And I'm articulating the move by using the ability to take my hips to the side, pull up in the center, take it out to the side and then flex through the back. Now, if you know you're very what we call lordotic, i.e. you can stand quite like this quite easily, just be careful, especially when you go around the back, don't almost hyperextend. Just try and contain that small circle move and just see yourself operating probably about the size of like a normal dinner plate is kind of what I think. So we're not going too mad, and just feel yourself almost pick up through the center. And I can try and flatten my stomach as I come around the front, and I can feel it quite low down. So it's underneath the belly button to the top of probably sort of, if I said kind of like the line of underwear that we might wear, and then take it back the other way. So it's this small controlled move, just mixing it up so it's not huge circles. If anything, the challenge sometimes becomes how I can make it a circle so that it is a sort of perfect circle with the same radius rather than maybe something that would be, I suppose, what's it, an oval. You're not kind of going for the running track, you're going for that perfect circle. And then just bringing those hips back up nice and straight. If you want to straight away, you can almost think about flexing your pelvis underneath you and think about pulling up here so you already feel a bit of tension, especially if you know you naturally stand like this. Just feel yourself tilt through that pelvis and feel the difference. It's because you spend a lot of time sitting down, this area here gets very, very tight, and the only way it can accommodate is it can shorten by popping the pelvis back. So if we force it forward and lengthen and pull in, straight away I can feel a difference there. Okay, so from here, we're just going to take it from side to side. Again, mobilizing, but we're only mobilizing in one plane. So I'm imagining I'm between two panes of glass. I did this today as part of a warm-up, but I want you to think about really making sure that those hips are as square as you can make it. Notice I'm not bringing them over. I'm not worrying about how far I can get down the side of my leg. I'm thinking about isolating through. So I fixed the bottom of the spine, really, and then I'm just asking it to flex in that central area, sort of deep down into a combination of the lumbar and maybe a little bit into the thoracic. So if you're starting to find we're getting a little bit tight on one side, we need to create a fixed point to then flex from. Okay, you can feel the difference. If you let your hips go, you can probably find that yes, you get a bit of a stretch, but ultimately it's not as isolating, whereas by fixing it, I can get a little bit more of an enhanced stretch. Okay, and then we're going to do some other fixation work. We didn't do this last week, but if you want to isolate and twist through the back, what you have to do is create a stable point. Our stable point for us today is going to be our hips. So they're going to stay face on, like we say, like you've got two headlights and you're going to keep them pointing on main beam down the road. What I want you to do is then take your hands. I tend to create like a bit of an L shape like that. And I have, so it gives me a reference point. I'm squeezing through my upper back. What I'm not doing is I'm not propping my chest out like this. I'm squeezing my shoulder blades down my back, so it's a little bit of a different move. And keeping my hips forward, I'm going to rotate. Now I'm not going to get round very far, because by default I shouldn't be able to. So I've got my hips facing forward and I keep my elbows lifted. What I've not done is I've not shifted my elbows round. If you keep your hands in a straight line, you're only going to get probably about 30 degrees round. And I'm just going to inhale and then exhale as I turn out and rotate out. And I'm going to think about squeezing through the upper back to keep those shoulders nice and lifted. So I'm just going to check how you guys are doing. So again, I'm very isolated in what I do. There is physically no way you should be able to get your torso all the way round. The only way I can do that is if I unfix my hips and then look, I've moved my hips, but I want my hips to stay facing forward. Okay, so again, imagine those lights that you've got right in front of you. That's the best way I think I can describe it. We should feel it right through. That's it. And again, remember, it's not about shifting. The hands shouldn't shift round. Again, I sometimes see people do this. They twist and then they do this, sort of move their arms around. That's why I create that L, and I almost dig my thumbs into my armpits, and they've got to stay there so they're not shifting around like this. Okay, so it's a very isolated rotation, hardly moving at all. So I've got fixed part of my spine, and then I'm rotating around from the top part. Now, part of Pilates is sometimes about mobility and sometimes it's about control. So this is about the control from either side. And what you can do is you can take your head round a little bit further, so you get that extra little twist. So you twist, hip space forward, hands into that chest, and then you can take that head round even further, because of course that has got its own axis, its own ability to rotate as well without the spine. So you've created this fixed point. We're twisting through the top of the spine, or I should say sort of the thoracic, maybe a bit of the lumbar. You're twisting through that, and then you're twisting very much at the top. Okay, so we've got those different regions that we isolate. One more either side. So again, we can just focus. And it's that almost becoming aware of which part of you is moving and how far. So last one either side. And then bring it back down and back round to the centre. Now we're going to take a little bit of mobility for the spine. So this is not about how flexible are your hamstrings. Your spine has got the ability, obviously, to go from side to side, but it's also got the ability to go forward and back. So we can allow it sort of extension and flexion. We're going to take our feet so they're hip distance apart. Get yourself a nice grounded spot. Again, straight away. Just feel yourself slightly tuck that pelvis under, and you should have felt a bit more of a core connection work. Okay, it's not as if you're pulling in so much that you can't breathe, but just try and actively flatten through here just a little bit. Just feel yourself switch on. Pick up your shoulder blades and then just roll them down the back, not so you're pulling them all the way down, but just feel that you've created a little bit more space between the bottom of the ear and the shoulder blade. And then imagine if I had a little bit of a fishing wire attached to your head and I was above you, I'm just going to reel it up. Just going to find yourself lifting a little bit taller. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm finding I'm having to actively work to stand like this. Okay? It's as if we would stand like this if we were going through military inspection or a parade or something like that. You just feel like you're actively, rather than kind of standing a bit like this, just that everything's working. So we're going to take this as our benchmark position. This is what we try and get back to. So what I want you to think about is when we move, we're always exhaling when we move. That's the key usually in Pilates. Most things you exhale when you do some kind of movement. So if you think about a lovely deep breath, inhale right into those lungs and expand. Feel yourself get your lungs to the outer edges. If you've got a top on underneath, usually it's where the stitching is. And then as you breathe out through the mouth slowly, just nod your chin to your chest and then start to allow the shoulders to come forward and continue to exhale. You might have to breathe in midway down, don't faint. You can breathe and just come all the way down and take a small bend in those knees. And I just want you to come down to a comfortable position where you can release through the head. The easiest way to release through the head at the bottom is do a couple of nods. Okay, just feel that back of that neck release, and then at the bottom of the move, inhale, again, expanding the air right into those lungs, the seams at the top, inhale. And then as you exhale, imagine you're blowing up a balloon. Continual stream of air and restack that spine. Just restack and roll up. Again, feel yourself tuck under with that pelvis. Keep breathing out if you can. Feel yourself reset the shoulder blades and then go back up to this new improved height. Okay, so it's flexion for the spine. So at the bottom, I'm not really worried about how flexible your hamstrings are. By actually bending through the knees, when we're at the bottom of the move, we could almost challenge ourselves to curl over even more and try and get our chest to the front of our thighs. Okay, we're going to do 3 more of those, and at the bottom you can actually kind of walk around from side to side, just feeling that twist, that little bit of a rotation. But what you don't do is move the butt. When you're down here, you can almost just walk around, and you can walk around and you can kind of just do some head nods. Brilliant to shake out tension, and then that inhale and restack the spine. Okay, team, so when you're ready in your own time, 3 of those. So this is our great, what we call spinal roll downs. I'm just going to put you all on gallery view so I can see how you're doing. Okay, so it's nice and controlled. Again, allow that head to be loose at the bottom. Just feel yourself. It feels a bit weird because you almost like nod your head. Gemma's got a little demo model next to her. This is great for when we have to pick up toys. We can roll down and find a toy to pick up. And then we can roll up and we can put it in the toy basket. So again, just allow yourself to unpeel. It's as if you're allowing each vertebrae to move, and then the next one, and then the next one. So it's not moving as a whole unit. It's like one goes, then it allows the other one to follow, then the next, and the same with that restacking. You've got to stack a bit like creating a Jenga tower that's solid. You've got to allow one to stack on top of the other. Okay, and just become aware of where your tightness is. Where do you need to stretch out? Do you find that by bending through your knees and actually curling up a bit more at the bottom, do you get a better stretch? That's where I need my stretch. Okay, so again, just bringing yourself down and just feeling, maybe it's at the top of the move when you extend and you put that chin to that chest. Maybe you need that extension through that back, right? Especially if you're spending a lot of time at the computer, you might find that actually your head is now slightly pitched forwards. Okay, so again, just rolling yourself up, rolling yourself down in a nice controlled manner. Again, if you want to explore from one side to the other, it just adds a bit of variety, But just be careful if you don't like your head being lower than your heart, just be kind of a little bit aware of that. Okay, so when we do our final one, we're going to roll ourselves down and we're going to take ourselves out into what we call tabletop, which is, well, it's essentially on all fours. So again, inhale, lift up nice and tall, make sure we're lifting up first, bringing in, really tucking in that navel and really sucking in and tucking that pelvis. Most people can feel it. I can feel the core working straight away, and I've not really done anything. I can actually feel it quite deep within me. Just roll yourselves down again, exhaling, and then bring yourselves out just onto your all fours, just checking that we are on even all fours. So we've got the wrists underneath the elbows and they're underneath the shoulders. So you've got a nice straight line. We make sure that the knees are underneath the hips as well. That's the key. So we're not going really wide. We're relaxing our feet into the floor. Okay. Now we're just going to do some cats and cows here, just for a little bit of mobility. And then we're going to go into a bit of a strength-based exercise. So allow yourself to tuck under your pelvis and drop your head down. So I'm creating a huge C curve, trying to place my spine on the ceiling. And then I can reverse the move, but I still keep myself lifted out of my shoulder blades. And I lift up my head and my tailbone. I only go to a position where it's comfortable. If I were to overextend, I could quite easily be here. The only way I've achieved this is by physically lifting up my chin too much. I've dropped into my shoulder blades and I've essentially started to really hitch up with my pelvis. I don't want to take it that far. I want to come to a position where I actually feel that I'm getting some level of extension that's sustainable, and then I can reverse the move. And it doesn't really matter whether we inhale or exhale at which move, but I tend to find I like to inhale as I come up and I exhale. So when I'm in my exhaling position here, there's a tendency to let the stomach come down. Can you, even when you've exhaled, think about drawing in through that navel? And then again, inhale here, so wide and deep into that chest, expanding and pushing right into the seams of your tops with your rib cage. And then exhale and start to feel yourself work around those shoulder joints. So it's a very small, controlled movement. I'm not deliberately hitching up out of my shoulder joint and focusing on tucking under, and then a nice natural release. So I feel I can actually hold it. And then we're going to bring ourselves back to our neutral spine. So we're not elevated, we're not depressed, we're back into our neutral spine. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit more time, team. I'm just going to change it so I'm on the main screen. So we're going to spend a little bit more time just so that we can actually see our core working. So from here, okay, if this gets a little bit too much onto your wrists, sometimes people like to come up like that, or sometimes if you're like me, I end up going like this. The key is, what you're not trying to do is overly flex through the shoulders. If you check my elbow creases out, they're kind of facing each other. If I overly flex and rotate, can you see how I can pop my elbow creases round? I don't want to do that. What that's doing is actually causing a little bit too much rotation. So just be aware, if you have a tendency to pop your elbows round, just release them so the elbow creases face each other. Okay, from here, we're going to ever so slightly turn those toes over. This is where sometimes it's good to make sure that you've got your no socks on if you're on a wooden floor. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift up off the floor. All I did was I slightly pushed into my toes and pushed my heels back. I'm keeping everything else flat. So I'm just going to lift up. Okay. Now this is where I'm going to start to feel the wobble and the wiggle. Okay, so it's going to go into the shoulders. It's probably going to go into the thighs a little bit. And then I release down. Okay, so I'm going to push up, and at the same time, I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to flatten through my core. So a big inhale, and then just exhale. Just make yourself as stable as you can. Do you know we do bear crawls? This is the move, and then release it down. Again, big inhale, wide and deep into the chest. Exhale, and just pop up onto those toes. Okay, and then release it down. Again, inhale, and then exhale and just push up. So it's a very small, you're probably about an inch off the floor with both knees. And one more here. So again, inhale, exhale, pull those shoulder blades down the back. And we're going to hold it here for a slow count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release it down. Just bring it off your wrists and just circle through your wrists, because you probably start to feel it through your wrists. Okay, we're going to take that move, or that concept of move, as in coming off the floor, and we're going to work into the body a little bit more. So again, a little bit more slow and controlled. Now, you can stay on your hands if you want, or you can come down onto your forearms. So something like a planking sequence. The best thing on your forearms is it's really easy to think about widening through the collarbones, because you can imagine you're pulling the floor apart, okay? It's a bit harder to do here, because naturally, it's actually quite difficult to try and do that. So think about coming down onto your forearms. I tend to place them a bit like that, and then I imagine I'm pulling the floor apart. Okay, it doesn't matter which arm is top, which arm is bottom. So again, bringing yourself down. Okay, we've got the option. We've got 2 options here. We can start like this. Now, straight away, you should feel that you're pulling out with your elbows, so that you're widening your collarbones. You're not dropping down here and actively pushing up. I'm not pushing too far. I'm not in a high plank in yoga. I'm in a low plank, so the upper back is having to work. I'm having to pull in through my core now, so I'm having to try and imagine I'm laying the front of my stomach on the back of my spine. There really isn't much going on with the lower body at the moment. It's just relaxed down, but I'm actively working to maintain this position. And I've just got natural breaths in and out. Just every time I exhale, just kind of thinking, can I sort of pull that belly button through that spine a bit more? I can stay here, and what I can do is I can just turn those toes over, and I've got the option to just lift up one leg and then release it back down, and then extend through the other leg and release it back down. So I just extend, I try and keep my hips as level as I can, again pulling out with those elbows. So that's kind of my level 1, okay? So I'm essentially always have one knee on the floor. If I want something that's a little bit more challenging, I can come up onto my toes, so I've got full plank. This time I can now really start to think about squeezing through the butt. And what I can do is I can drop one knee down, let it touch the floor, and then I can release it up. And then I can drop the other knee down. Again, that big sort of inhale and the exhale, as you push the heel up. So I drop down, and then I extend up. Drop down, and then I extend up. Slightly bit of a more challenging level on that one is I drop the knee down, but it never touches the floor. Okay, so I essentially just remain in a plank. Again, I'm thinking about bracing through the belly and squeezing my abs all the way through my spine. Again, inhale and exhale through that flattening. And then the final level is I actually drop both knees down, but they never ever touch the floor. So I'm just doing that. Okay, and if any of you are still holding that full plank position, I suspect we're finding it through the shoulder blades probably about now, and through the abs. So again, whichever level we're doing, 1 or 2 more, and then just bring yourself down and release it off. You might want to stretch out a little bit. Again, just coming up as much as your back allows you. Okay, so you find that in a plank, same when we do mountain climbers. So it's very similar. Mountain climbers, it's about stabilizing through the upper back. That's good, that's going to stay still. And then it's the legs and the core that do the work. So when Adam and I were saying to you, if someone's here in mountain climbers and they're doing something that's like this, we're saying get the weight forward potentially push out with the hands so that then you get something that essentially the torso isn't really doing much. It should be very, very stable. Okay, so we're going to come down and stick with our sort of rear sequence. Bring yourself all the way down. And another one, the area that we work in the Pilates is what I call the posterior chain. So everything that's in the back. Now, some of these exercises you probably know, but we're just going to kind of break them down a little bit. So one of the exercises I love to do in Pilates is swimming. We imagine we're off like on the beach. Now, the thing with a swim is that it's not initiated from the knee. It's initiated from the hip. You should think glute, hamstring, calf. Okay, so you can rest our head down here, or we can take it to the side. It's up to you. Obviously, if we're going to have it here, it means our head is going to be straight. But if you just want to watch what we're going to do, straight away I squeeze through the butt and I find that I can lift my legs, including half my thigh off the floor. I can stay here and then I can release down. So I can stay at this level where I'm just picking my legs up. I'm squeezing hard through my butt, my hamstrings and my calves, and then I'm releasing down. So again, I can exhale as I lift. I'm almost trying to pull the belly off the floor, so I'm not pushing it into the floor, and I'm not really using my lower back at all. It's everything is coming from the base of the body. If I want a little bit more from that, what I can do is I can start to do slow swims where I've got both feet off the floor, and again I'm trying to get one thigh a little bit higher than the other. And then the final one we can do is where we have both legs and we're going for it. You see how my thighs are probably not working well, so I've got dark leggings on, but can you see how I've got a straight leg? I'm not doing this, I'm not rocking and rolling all over, and actually I'm not going to get very high. The only way I can get a bit of height on it is if I use my lower back, but I want to actually remain using the glutes. Okay, so have a little bit of go at different options, see what works for you, but again think glute, hamstring and then calf. Option, I can even just do one leg lift if I want. I can do both leg lifts and I can release down. I can do my single sort of quite slow swims, or I can take it a little bit faster. But again, avoid pressing that navel into the floor to try and get height. You should really feel this through your glutes and through the back of the body. Okay, so it should go into that lower body. I can see Gemma's got her little camera assistant there. That's it. So again, really work into and keep those legs. This is how we would teach you to fin in the water. So you find that the move is very much initiated, say glute, hamstring, calf. Okay, oh, she's got a little, you've got like a little sub-aqua pack on your back. you've got like an inbuilt set of tanks. That's it. So again, just feel yourself. So again, now Rose, I can see the top of your head. I shouldn't be able to because you should be lying flat down, okay? Because what happens is we create tension in the spine. So I'm just lying down here, like that. Or as I've got my single leg lift. Now the tendency for the single leg lift is you'll push into the floor with the other one. So just release that foot off the floor. So the only thing that's lifting it is the glute, the hamstring and the calf. Okay, again, we can stretch out if we need to. Okay, so Rose, what I'm seeing is I shouldn't be able to see the flex of a foot, okay? There is no way, unless you are, actually I don't think it's even possible really, to be able to, I shouldn't actually be able to see anybody's sole of their foot, because the foot is only going to such a height. The only way I can see the sole is when people flex through the knee. So keep it nice and long, like that. So just the whole of the back of the body firing up from the waist down. That's it. Last 3 here, last 2. Gemma has now got a twin pair of scuba tanks on her back. And then release down. Okay, the best way to release tension is quite simply just roll your hips like that from side to side. It's a bit like you hit the waves on the beach. So just roll it from side to side. Okay, we're going to combine a lower body exercise and an upper body exercise. You don't have to do the two of them together, but you can, it's up to you. So we're going to bring our hands out to the side, so we create that U shape. And from here, all we're going to do is we're going to lift ourselves up. We're working into the lower back, the erector spinae, to lift ourselves up. If we would like to put a little bit more work into the upper back, we can then pull our shoulder blades down the side, we release, and then we come down. So I lift using the lower back, and then I can squeeze into the shoulder blades, release and down. Option, I can do one hand, or option is I'm just lifting and releasing. If my lower back doesn't like that, what I can do is come down and not lift, and I can just retract the shoulder blades like that. So I can take out the lift part, okay? So I don't have to do the lift part. It's not about the height you can get on this, okay? It's about how smoothly you can lift, and then imagine you're pulling and slotting those shoulder blades down the back. Okay, so it's a very isolating. You should feel the difference between lifting with that lower back and then pulling back. The work should then transfer into the upper back. So if any of you do PT with me, you'll do something that's a little bit like this, because it essentially allows you to create stability through the whole of the back, and that's what we want. So when you do things like deadlifts, when we're doing any kind of press up work, we need to make sure that the back is supporting us. And of course, if you'd like some extra weights, then just get your children to climb all over you, because they'll make it harder for you. Okay, how are we doing? Again, it's a very isolating kind of move. Now, if you really want to challenge the whole of your posterior chain, you can add on a set of legs with it as well. Some people do the combination of the two, so they'll end up lifting. When they lift the back, they'll lift the feet. They'll lift up and they'll squeeze down, and they might swim for 2 or 3, and then they can release down. So again, they lift top and bottom, like they're creating a U through their back. I then lift up, and as I squeeze and I exhale, I also swim. You'll notice quite quickly that that becomes quite an intense move, because you're firing up the whole of your posterior chain. So please don't feel that you have to do that move. That's just an option. Again, you need to have a big, strong, that move is coming from the hip. Okay, so I should see the thighs moving a little bit as well. That's it. It's very isolating, this. Okay, 2 more here. Again, try and see if you can't feel it in certain areas. Really try and isolate through that lift. That's it. So it's a very, very small kind of move. It's weird in Pilates that sometimes the smaller and more concentrated the move is, it's like the worse it becomes. That's it. And 1 more here. And then the easiest stretch for this one, or the best one I find, is to bring yourself up into child's pose. So knees apart, toes together, and then just drop your chest through and just feel yourself lengthen through the arms. Now, it might take a little bit of a while before your back releases. Sometimes it's suddenly you feel a click. If this is too much for your back, then just bring your knees in, and it means you'll be able to get less. You basically can't get through your thighs, but sometimes being able to get through your thighs can be a bit too much pressure on the back. So again, you can really lengthen out through the shoulder blades. Okay, we could do loads. we could do loads, but we're going to do a little bit of a core function. So what I want you to do for the last bit is take yourself over. I'll put myself onto the main screen, because one of the most classic exercises that we do in Pilates, and I think it'd be a shame not to do it today, is the 100. So the 100 is about doing a move, creating a vibration, essentially, like a power plate. So make yourself into a power plate, but then you're bracing through the core, through the center of the body. So we've got lots of different levels, okay, lots of different levels. The key to this is by creating a movement here. Again, notice the movement comes from my shoulders. So a bit like that kick, it comes from my shoulders. I can tuck my head in, especially if I start to feel it in my neck. Or some people do something like that, where they will then change, especially if they feel they're putting pressure on the neck. Okay, so don't feel you've got to keep yourself lifted and put tension there. What you do is by vibrating quickly, and you tend to count, I count in sort of blocks of 10. So I might be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Okay, the idea is you're going up to about 100. Okay, the harder you make it, you can start even just down here. And what you're trying to do is get this core to work. If you're here, you focus on squeezing the lower back. So straight away there, I'm now pushing my lower back into the floor. Okay, I'm bracing through my core. If I want to make it harder, what I can do is I can take the legs out. Now, the further I go with the legs, the more I have to push the back into the floor. Because trust me, hanging here, I can now start to get my hand under my spine. What I need to do is lift up the legs and concentrate and focus on pushing down. I've got loads of other positions that I can do it in. The traditional one would be your Pilates boat, where you've got your feet like this and you pump your hands like that. There's no feedback loop, so you don't know what's going on with the spine. That's personally why I like to keep my back on the floor, because then I can see what's going on with the spine. So we've got options. We can have our knees above our hips, back into the floor. Again, I slightly push that back into the floor, and I can be here, and I'm essentially pulling down, and you just do short, shallow breath, pulling everything in. If I want to make it harder, one leg long. If I want to make it harder still, both legs long. If I really want to make it pretty tough, but I've still got to keep my back into the floor, I can lift my legs, and I can slightly lift my torso, and again, that might be where the head holding comes on. Okay, we're going to go twice through. Okay, so this is kind of the challenge, the Pilates challenge. So bring yourself down into your position that you want to give a go at. Remember, short, shallow breaths. I cannot tell you how much the focus is on pulling that back into the floor, and imagine you're squashing it, creating surface area. Straight away, before you've even done anything, you should feel that core switch on. Okay, team, are you ready? When you're ready, you can start your short, shallow breaths. And again, remember, pump, the move comes from the shoulder. Okay, so you should feel you're creating a level of vibration through the body. Again, we're not holding that breath, short, shallow breaths. Feel yourself pull that core even deeper and try and squash the back into the floor even more. You might want to change your leg position, especially if you find the hip flexors start to turn on. So once you've done your 100, okay, give yourself a little bit of a break. You might want to bring the knees into the chest, just stretch it out a little bit, okay? And again, if you're lifting up through that torso as well, it's not a problem, but just make sure you're remaining with that core locked on, and it's all about creating pressure on the floor. Okay, you're creating that core connection. And again, those big, strong arm movements that create that vibration through that body. So again, think about that shoulder move all the way down and all the way up. So we're going to do that twice. Again, like Nass is demonstrating beautifully, you can change legs if you're using one leg. Okay, once you've done your 2 sets of your 100, relax it out. Just relax it out, because that's quite a lot of work there. for that core. Okay, so just relax it out. Let me know once you've done it. Again, sometimes even just scooping up and bringing the knees all the way into the chest just provide you with a little bit of light relief. Okay, so you probably felt that quite a lot through the core. The other way to stretch out through the abs is to quite simply bring the heels into the butt and push up and feel yourself stretch out through the front of the body. This is another Pilates exercise like the roll up, which we did last week, but we might consider doing next week. So we just kind of keep challenging, putting in a kind of a different focus at the end. Okay, and then finally, just roll yourself around. Just allow those legs to roll from side to side. Just release out any tension from that spine that you've got, anything that we would have built up. So we do a combination of mobility, flexibility, and then obviously that core connection as well. So just feel everything release off. And a nice little stretch for the back, if you haven't done this one before, is we can either just bring in the knees and we can just stretch it out. So I can have my hands just behind my knees and I'm just stretching it out like this. So it just provides a little bit of a stretch for that back. And then if we want to go, you've got full happy baby pose, which is where you grab hold of the inside of your foot and you just allow yourself to hang out here. What you're trying to do is get your tailbone onto the floor. I bet you Gemma's kids can demonstrate this absolutely perfectly. This is a great one that little kids do. And again, just see if you can allow that pelvis just to release a bit, that inner thigh just to release a bit, the shoulders to release a bit. Just feel yourself relax into it. But say if you don't want to do this, you can just grab behind the knees. It's a little bit less intense. And then when you're ready, just roll yourself up and just bring yourself back. Now, we don't usually do any kind of breathing exercises, but bring yourself onto your sit bones. That means moving a bit of gluteal fat around and just sit up nice and tall. And then just use the opportunity just to roll the shoulders down the back. Just feel yourself mobilize. A lovely stretch is we're going to use one hand. So one hand at the back is going to prop you up. And this one is going to be the one that levers you round. So place one hand basically kind of probably about a hand's distance from your spine, push up, and then use the other hand to act as a twist and take your head all the way around. You should feel a lovely stretch there. And again, if you want a little bit more, inhale, and then as you exhale, just feel yourself twist a little bit more. And then release off and just take it the other way. Again, that stabilizing hand to really push you up, and this other hand just to twist you around. So when you're ready, inhale, and then as you exhale, just apply that twist. You might find something goes, you might find your spine just suddenly clicks. And then again, inhale and exhale. And release it off and bring it back to the front. Team, that is your Tuesday Pilates done.